But that's what we did. And you can see if a person hits a point where there's energy movement, you can tell. And that's the criteria. But let's see how far we get here now. Yeah, there are a couple points just about acupuncture in general. Because I want to sort of build up the house here. One is that when you put the needle in, it also affects you. I don't know, maybe that's obvious, maybe it isn't. It affects you, so if you do treatments, you end up having more energy than when you start. That's if you're used to it. If you're just new at it, it drains you. But if you've done a lot of treatments, it affects you, you feel better. And it will also cure your ailments to a certain degree. I remember once having a swollen toe. I kept asking a patient, is your toe bothering you? Because my treatment to them makes my toe get better. The second rule is also important. The more people that watch, the better the treatment is. As long as they more or less like the patient. They don't have to like you. I did a talk at Beth Israel once, and the guy who invited me was fired. Other guy, they're all disciplined, and yet the audience was tremendously interested. They're all instructors. Usually if I do a demonstration of acupuncture with an audience, I will tell the audience that the treatments work better in an audience like this than they do just one-on-one. And if they see unusually good results, not to take it too seriously. But that is very much the case. And anybody who speaks before a group ought to know that they should have picked up on that. And remember, this is a treatment developed in China. China's for crowds. The whole issue of privacy and HIPAA and all that is not a tradition of older China at all. And so this is a crowd-friendly treatment. And when you don't do it that way, you really sacrifice. You sacrifice quite a bit, actually. Now, I would think if you had animals there instead of people, it would work just fine. I don't think it's any... the people don't have to know each other. They don't have to be cued in. They don't have to be hip. They're just there. And more or less sympathetic. Now, it is certainly true that if you have people who are very sympathetic, and you're working with somebody who has a brain injury or something like that, that can help a great deal. Like the Central Park jogger, people who are famously brain injured often do very well because there's a lot of interest. And then the second thing about acupuncture is part of a continuum. Continuum of touching people to a continuum of intentional healing, and it's all part of that. There's nothing I have ever seen in the world that you can do with a needle that you can't do with your hand. Doing treatments that are especially good with your hand are a little harder than putting the needle in, actually. You have to tolerate more and hold the point longer and be in a better space and so on. The needle's advantage is that you can do it fast and you don't get so much transference back. You do a lot of treatments with your hands, you have to prepare yourself so you don't get dizzy and so on. And the needle allows you to. And the needle is less intimate, and in a lot of settings, the NADA setting, for instance, it's very useful to be less intimate. But if you're going to teach people how to do needling, you should teach them how to do points with their hands first. you want to demystify things. If you're going to be good at something, you have to have it demystified so you can take it in. Now, what my notes doing here? The problem with when all these schools were starting in the U.S., these are a lot of them were done by friends of mine who more or less know what they were thinking. And they were thinking they didn't have much a chance of succeeding, actually. Generally, you look in the history of a school, there's a generous, rather single-minded Asian person somewhere back in the history, and that's what started the momentum running. But to get approval to fit in the world, your world, right? Not their world. Now it's their world and our world is much similar. They started out teaching here a little bit of Western medicine, a little more of Western medicine. And Western medicine is, first of all, not very scientific. And not very many things it is, and it just existed virtually in the past few years after World War II. You can't have a medicine without useful remedies, and before World War II you didn't have useful remedies. People were doing really good, right? But really good isn't necessarily come out the way you want. And the weaknesses of Western medicine fit into the strengths of Chinese medicine. Western medicine as a technology is wonderful. It's accepted all over the world. Technological medicine, without any question. I have a cleft palate. The surgery was donated by a surgeon. They had technology. They could handle this. It developed in the West. That's a technological process. Western medicine that is the more properly, uniquely Western medicine is pharmaceutical medicine. That's a different story. And I wrote most of the things I'm saying are in some book somewhere. To find it. Well, let's just start at the beginning. If you hear in general, right, that the heart pumps the blood around the body. Most of you have heard that. I remember reading a book on Buddhist yoga, and the guy in the book says, the heart isn't a pump, it's a dam. Well, I got mad at that. I figured he was being flippant, and so I tried to sort of look into it. He was being rather accurate, of course. Let's start out. The heart looks like a pump, right? It has all these muscles, and you have the blood with a high pressure here goes to a low pressure at the fingertip, and you say, wow, we're pumping down the pressure gradient and this and so on. You learn in first aid how hard it is to get the blood from the level of the heart up to the level of the head, and you do all these things. And what I'm saying is every senior physiologist knows what I'm saying is true. You can tell the way they write this. This is not this is very basic physics. It's not difficult. In fact, the first time I gave this talk, that in a medical setting, the director of physiology pulled me down from the podium and said, I want you to come to my lab. So I figured he would make a fool out of me. I got in there and he said, I've been telling all these fellows about, because I agree with what you said, I've been telling them all this time and they won't listen to me. These are issues of catechism, they're not an issue of science. The heart looks, so you pump it down, right? Pump the blood down here. Deal is, our blood system, circulatory system, is a high volume system. You've got to recirculate the blood.